It's way past time I dispense some indiscriminate justice!
Good afternoon, guys. Duckville here, or morning, or night, or whatever it is where you are. This is going to be a replay from the Korean server. This is going to be a bit of fun, a little bit of a different sort of layout to how I would normally cast this one. This is, of course, from the Korean server. The players are no one too fancy that you would know of. This particular Terran here, the red Terran down in the 6 o'clock position of Metalopolis, name is Raven, or it sort of comes out to Raven. And his opponent over here, the blue Zerg, is known as HButt. I'll call him Butt just because it's funny, and it will be really annoying to say Butt all the time. But yeah, this is going to be a little bit different because this has got a little bit of a story behind it. These particular players, from what I understand, are actually in sort of bronze silver leagues. So take that as you will. Of course, a lot of people will know that if you go from like the NA server or the C server over to Korea, it's something like, you know, bronze is actually like your sort of gold platinum level on C or NA. But these guys, of course, are still got some decent skills because they are over on Korea. But either way, let's not concern ourselves with that. As we can see here, a little bit of an interesting little wall off here from Raven. He's decided that walling down the bottom is a better idea than walling up the top. Not really too sure if this is the most beneficial way of actually doing this. Of course, you can, as far as I understand, you can actually still wall off these types of ramps with one racks and one supply depot. Not to mention, he should know he's actually against the Zerg, so it's not as if he won't have an overlord flying in to trouble him down sort of in the middle of the base here, and it will obviously scout out what he's doing. But as I was saying, this is going to be a little bit of a different style of replay or cast, I suppose, where we're actually going to have a look. There is a second particular replay linking these two together, and it's actually really funny. So we'll get to the story more towards the end of this particular replay, but what we'll have a look at are just the particular builds that these guys do, and we'll have a look at a way that the loser can counter what the winner does in game number 2. So let's see what's happening down here. This bunker, the rack, sorry, is just about completed here. The drone is sacking away at that rack, and it's probably going to have a few shots at the SCV if possible. As we can see on the health bars there, SCV's only taken one hit, so he's not too troubled for the moment. The racks will complete quite easily here, and of course our Zerg player won't have too much information on what's going on just yet, but as I mentioned, of course he knows, well, number one, he knows that there is a racks down here, of course, blocking off the ramp, and he knows that there probably is only one gas at a max, because of course when you grab that second supply depot a little bit quicker, you can't get the second refinery straight away. But now we'll see that our Zerg player is probably going to have to use an overlord to scout through and probably try and find out how many gas are going. Of course, this day and age you do see a lot of Terrans using the 2 racks kind of strategy, but perhaps we'll see something a little bit different here. We do have a gas done for, but he's does not have his Zergling speed on the way just yet. He does have a spine crawler just ready to go, and of course this natural expansion is up and running. So the 2 gas have now actually gone up for Raven. This is where his particular style comes into effect, of course, and we'll see what he's going to get up to in just a moment. And as we can see here, this wall actually coming into a little bit of usefulness, of course, now that it is actually down here and blocking off this particular position. A bunker going down, another bunker across to the side. This is a very quick expansion, especially given that Raven only has the 3 Marines at the moment. He is getting a couple more out. As we can see, there's one about to pop out. But the one thing that we can see here is that he does have double gas. Now, generally, you get when you're against the Terran, if you do see the double gas, which Butt has not seen just yet, just keep that in mind. He does not know that this is that both of these have been taken, and of course that the natural has been taken. But he's not aware that there are the double gas there, and of course that means that you will be getting some tech out of your Terran opponent. So do keep that in mind. But as we can see here, Butt again is sending down some Zerglings. He's probably going to try and scout out what he can at the Terran base here. Raven's certainly going to have enough to defend this for the moment, of course. He's got this nice little choke point wall off here. Probably going to use this the racks to actually fully wall this off, and he is indeed going to get a reactor up and running. He does have enough gas to get that up, and of course he will have a nice amount of minerals, of course, because as we can see, he's grabbing a factory, but he doesn't look as if he's getting a couple of factories. He certainly has the resources to grab an extra factory, but he's not going to, putting down a starport. And now, as we can see, a tech lab is coming into effect. Some of you who know this particular style will be already aware of what is coming up, but as we can see from Butt, he's getting a baneling nest here, Queen is just sort of waiting here, not injecting just yet. As we mentioned, this isn't these guys aren't full-on pros, but there's certainly no slashes to contend with. And we'll find out in just a minute what Raven is up to. And I think that second starport does give it away, not to mention all of that gas. You should be aware that, of course, that a certain unit from the Terran arsenal does take a lot of gas to use, not to mention the upgrades that you do need for it. And, of course, that will probably be some Ravens, obviously living up to his name there. But two bunkers are the only things here defending this particular position. So if Butt was sort of a little bit more aggressive with his scouting and had a little bit more information of what was going on, he certainly could try and bust through there with perhaps an early bailing attack, or perhaps some sort of a secondary attack with the Nidus worm. I almost said Nidus canal again, into the back there, but we'll see what happens. But obviously, it's something he will have to contend with in a moment, is what to do about this this very heavy concrete wall out the front of the Terran base, with Marines popping out consistently and a lot of gas being pumped out. Now, as we can see over here, an engineering bay has been completed, so he's going to have some missile turrets ready to roll shortly, which will obviously protect against any Mutalisk, which may come out from Butt. But as we can see, with only the one gas actually done for Butt, he's certainly not going to have enough gas for Mutas, and potentially even Hydras. He won't have too much just for the moment, but with the second extractor just about done, he will be on track for something soon. Two Spore Crawlers are coming through here now from Butt, so he is going to be prepared against anything air-based. He may have been assuming that there were some Banshees on the way, but here we go with Raven number 1. 2 and 3 are just about on the way, and this is obviously going to turn into something quite interesting here. Butt has just scouted out here, trying to find out what is happening at the front of the base. Sees that there is this very interesting supply depot / bunker wall off, which is going to stop any Zerglings from busting through. And now an Overlord finally being sacrificed to check out what is going on in the base, and it does go down, but it did actually get a little bit of vision on just sort of this area here. Saw that there was a Raven. I think he actually saw that there was an extra starport as well. Yeah, he did see the extra starport just across to the side. But now Butt is actually supply capped, not being prepared for that sacrificial Overlord. A little bit of a mistake there, but he's certainly got some information now which will help him out in the coming moments. As we can see, we have Raven actually getting a third. Is that a third Rax? No, it's just a second. Oh, it is a third. We got another one over here and a fourth one in production as well. Another Raven still coming through here. There's certainly enough to get another Raven started up as well, so we'll see if he's going to get that done. Keep in mind, the Ravens do not have their Corvid reactor just yet, which does boost their starting energy by 25. You don't often see that, so I would not be surprised if a lot of people didn't actually know about that one, because generally Ravens aren't really used in an offensive way. But as per a previous video on my channel, if you go back through, I can't remember when it was sort of early last year sometime, we actually did see a Terran using offensive Ravens like this, which we will probably see in just a moment here. But speaking of offense, the mech statue going down there from Butt, he's not happy with that, and this wall is really, really tough for Butt to break through, so I don't think he's going to have any chance of getting through there. 4 Ravens are done at the moment. There are 2 more on the way. One is about to complete, so we'll have 5 up in the sky in a moment, and another one will be done shortly after that. Interesting things to think about, of course, for Butt is he has now scouted that there is this massive wall off. Of course, he scouted that there are at least the 2 starports. He could potentially think that there could be some more, but he's obviously got to consider expanding pretty quickly here. Does take the third up here at the 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock position. Probably you'd want to think about taking even a 4th base, or perhaps even a gold, considering that his Terran opponent is really turtling up hard. So if you actually see your Terran sort of building this sort of massive wall off here, and just pumping out a lot of Marines, and of course you can consider expanding, even if it is a bit risky. Give it a shot anyway, because I mean it's only 300 minerals compared to the 400 that the other races have to compete with. But he's going to have a lot of Ravens out soon, and these guys are obviously very, very potent in larger numbers. And as we can see here, these all have enough energy for an auto turret. They start with enough energy for that. Point defense drone is not short, not too far behind. In fact, he's just 100 energy to put that down. Does stop all sorts of missile attacks, so things like Hydra attacks, Corruptors. Doesn't stop Mutalisks, if I remember correctly. And those sorts of things will definitely be stopped by all of these Ravens. Now the Ravens, the other big thing they do have is the Seeker missile, which we don't have researching. There it is actually researching. So he's getting the Seeker missile out, which will be a great addition to this fleet of Ravens once they are prepared to roll out. Now, the one thing, as we mentioned before, that Butt has actually seen that all of those Ravens are there. He knows that, of course, the Terran is walling up. His decision at the moment is to go with a lot of Banelings. Now, the Banelings perhaps are not the best idea to roll with because, of course, whilst they do a lot of damage and they will be able to tear through all of this wall eventually, it's not really too much to actually defend against when, you know, you've got a lot of Marines, and of course you've got these Ravens in the sky, because believe it or not, Banelings cannot jump up in the air. So the Banelings will be a little bit stopped in terms of taking out the Ravens, and the Ravens can put down the auto turrets, which do a heap of damage. It's actually quite unbelievable how much damage they do when they get into a few numbers and they're left unchecked, which we may see in a short moment, because it looks as if Butt is preparing to attack. He's got a lot of Banelings. They do have their barrel rolls upgraded, and they are going to roll through now. A couple of roaches in the back to help out, and it looks as if the Zerglings are going to try and just bust through here. A massive Baneling rolling ball just busting through all of that wall there is coming through the back into the SCVs, and all the SCVs go down. Meanwhile, at the back here, the roaches have obviously gotten a free path in, but they now have to contend with the auto turrets from the Ravens. And the auto turrets, as I said here, have a look at this damage they actually do. We'll get one to actually have a look at. They do 8 damage at a weapon speed of 0.8, so they actually do so much damage when they actually have a few of them down on the ground, of course, and then supplemented by these Marauders and Marines, which are just randomly out on the map at the moment. They it is quite something to contend with when you're a Zerg until you get the proper counter, which of course I'm sure some of you guys will have realized by now. Generally, you'd probably want to grab some Mutalisks to help out with attacking the Ravens, of course, because the Ravens, once they put down their auto turrets, they don't actually have anything else they can use apart from the Seeker missiles. But beautiful little Baneling attack here, sacrificing some of those to hold off this Terran army, which is about to pump through here. Now, as you can see, the Marine Marauder is just starting to roll through there. Meanwhile, over at the main base, and sort of the natural there, as we can see, a lot of auto turrets are going down, and these, as we said, tearing through all of these units. Check out the health bars on those Zerg units. They are getting absolutely smashed there by all of these auto turrets. The Spinecrawler down at the back is doing a good job of poking away at some of these, but they do take a little bit of time to die. They do have 150 health, and of course they have that, I believe it's 7 range, which actually means that they can do a lot of damage to some of the units before they even get in range. Now, as you can see, a lot of the ground army from the Terran was actually destroyed in that attack, but of course now with this counter of the auto turrets going down in the base there, the Spire, we see that fall apart, and a lot of these drones were actually lost in the process there. Let's have a quick look at the workers killed count. We still actually have a decently even count for the workers killed. We got 21 dead, 21 kills for Raven, and he's actually only taken 15 kills himself. But as we can see, some roaches starting to come through here. We'll keep an eye on their health bars, because as you can see, with that, with the auto turrets down, they do a great amount of damage. A Marauder still sticking in that little cluster of units for the moment. A scan going down, not really sure what the point of that was, but he's scanning away, taking out a lot of these roaches. It's very cost inefficient in a way to actually see these roaches just slowly barreling down all of these auto turrets. It's still some auto turrets in the back of the natural there, providing a defense against any sort of mining here, but they will eventually go down. As you can see, the auto turrets have no vision up on the high ground there, and the roaches will of course just blast them away. Now, the thing for Raven, of course, is that was such a cost-efficient sort of attack where he's using all of these Ravens. I forgot to mention actually that the upgrade that was taken for from the engineering bay was that one where you actually get durable materials, which increases the life of the auto turrets. It goes up to the 240 in-game seconds as opposed to the, I think it's 180, is it? Something like that. Before you get that upgrade, and now more Ravens are just coming in here. They've resupplied their energy, putting down some more turrets. Not sure about the positioning of these turrets, but either way, they are going to do a great deal of damage, as we mentioned before. More roaches coming in through the ramp to the main, and they are just not going to get anywhere. There are so many turrets here. Check out all of those turrets. They're actually just a massive group of turrets, and HButt leaves the game. So that was an interesting little strategy there from Raven, of course, living up to his name. And now the thing for you guys to think about is, of course, how would you actually counter that? So there's a couple of things you can think of course, is as we mentioned right at the start, the gas is a very important part of this particular build. And of course, course, that Ravens are quite susceptible to Mutalisks until they put their auto turrets down, and of course the Ravens will hang around the auto turrets while the Mutalisks are still flying around, providing a little bit of a nuisance. But once they fly away, they are quite susceptible to those sorts of attacks. But generally, I would suspect that the best way to actually counter this would be to just run in at the start of the game, do some sort of bust, and just hopefully you can bust through your opponent before he sets up this sort of Great Wall of China style thing out the front of the natural, and then win that. So we will go over to game 2. I'll do some fancy cutting here, and we'll go straight into game 2. I'm not going to link this as a separate VOD, so just stick around and we'll get to the next one. Thanks for waiting there, guys. We're back into game 2. Now, the story of these particular guys, as I mentioned, there was a little bit of a story here. As you can see with the colors, we actually have HButt in yellow now. So, according to the summary of these 2 particular replays, which were up on PlayXP, HButt actually got a little bit sad about that loss to all of those Ravens before. Now, I'm not actually sure exactly what went on here in the chat, but I'm pretty sure from what I read that HButt was a little bit upset and demanded a rematch just after the last game we saw there in part 1. So this is the actual rematch. Of course, we have same races. Of course, you wouldn't want to switch races in a rematch, and the actual same map as well. Of course, I think HButt may have been hoping that some sort of another positional advantage would help him out here. Now we are close ground spots, which isn't necessarily the same sort of advantage that he had before with the close air to be able to scout what his opponent was doing, but from what I read, they actually wanted to see the same sorts of strategies. So Raven, of course, as over here, as we saw in game number 1, is probably going to go for some very quick double gas to make sure he has enough gas to build up that Raven army, and of course we'll probably try and take his natural as soon as possible, because from what I understand, now keep in mind I'm not a Terran player, but from what I understand, you actually do need at least the 3rd, and obviously it would help out to have the 4th gas when you are doing this sort of very heavy Raven build where you're spending so much gas on the Ravens, of course. Now, getting this early wall in here, making sure that his opponent doesn't get inside, of course. The other thing is that Raven could just totally switch up his tactics and do something different, which would be totally awesome, but it's kind of, dishonorable. But anyway, we'll forget about that for the moment. Yeah, he's getting that early wall in there to make sure that Butt cannot get inside, and he'll just finish off this Rax next up. There he goes. Now, as we mentioned before, the positional advantage that the Butt was probably hoping for was, he was perhaps hoping for this, where he can get a close ground spots and just roll straight up here and perhaps bust in and get inside and then just take out Raven quite early. But the other problem, as we mentioned before, is the scouting. Now, of course, as we saw before, an Overlord did go across here, didn't scout what was going on because, of course, Raven isn't over here, and now finally getting across to the other side is this scouting drone, and he's not going to get inside because that wall is done, pathing a little bit further away there, and he can see a bunker is going up. So that can mean 2 things. One thing is that, of course, that Raven might be doing that tech, and will be probably doing that tech, I would suspect. We do see that 2 gas are up now, and the orbital command just starting up as well. The other thing is that any sort of baneling bust might be a little tiny bit trickier to pull off, with a bunker sitting here waiting with a Marine, and probably a couple more Marines will come out shortly, waiting for some banelings to try and bust their way through there, but they will be able to shoot down any banelings if there are too few a number, but we'll see what happens. But has the natural up, of course, it is quite needed, but again, I think if he really did want to try and counter this strategy, you would really want to go in for some sort of fast baneling bust, whether it be just off one base and really low economy and just go straight in for that really early timing with banelings, which you can pull off, or whether it be just a slightly later sort of higher economy bust. Either way, you really want to get in as soon as possible. Now, we've got 2 Marines out for Raven. He's got them inside the bunker ready to roll. A factory is now done and the starport coming up, so we'll probably be able to safely assume that Raven is definitely going to do this strategy here with the Raven fun time on the auto turrets, and a Queen and a couple of Lings are just prepared to defend any possible counterattacks, which inevitably won't occur in this particular game because, of course, as we mentioned, these guys doing the same sorts of strats. Just looking at the economy here, of course, we've got, interestingly, we do see that that Butt is actually just a little bit behind where he probably should be in this sort of timing. but as we can see, a couple of lings are now done. They do get spotted by an SCV, which is just randomly running down here with some minerals in his hand, probably offering it in peace. And the baneling nest is, of course, done. No baneling speed, of course. There's no lair just yet. There's not enough gas for that. But as we can see, these yellow lings, the fancy coloured lings, are going to run across the map here. We're going to see a baneling bust indeed. There are going to be a total of the 12 banelings, which will be ready to roll up that hill once they get across. The wall is sort of a medium strength wall. As we mentioned before, we've got a bunker over here. We've got a factory protecting along with the supply depot, but of course this weak spot will be this left-hand side with only the supply depot to wall off. Now, a bunker is going down to help defend, but it's in the totally incorrect position. Banelings busting in through the front door. The supply depot goes down. The Marines as well. Those were the only things that Raven actually has to defend. HButt having a good old time laughing at what has just happened. A Raven has finally popped out. An auto turret can definitely go down here, and we'll see if this is going to be the end of Raven's particular strategy. He is having a good go of it, keeping the SCVs in the fight there to make sure they can take out some of those lings if they can, and trying to take out a tech lab. A very good idea to try and take the tech lab while he can before too many Ravens can get out and provide too much defense with the auto turrets. But as we can see here, those auto turrets can be repaired. I would love to see Raven actually repair these if he can and just hold off this attack, but it looks as if he will hold off this initial attack. But a second bust is coming through here. A lot of lings are being built. As we can see on the production tab, we have 6 lings are coming through as well, and 2 more banelings are just morphing in here. And these lings, meanwhile, are just marching through this base, tearing up Marines left, right, and center. A little bit of miscontrol, losing a couple of these lings here for pretty much no gain. But an auto turret is down because the second Raven came out. The command center is not going to complete in any way, shape, or form for the moment. And we'll probably see that Raven will probably go down. He is forced down to a total of 9 SCVs, 17 harvesters for HButt at the moment, and he's got all these links inside now. Of course, as we mentioned, those can be repaired. It's a little bit unfortunate he's not repairing the auto turrets. The tech lab was destroyed. It's being rebuilt at the moment. It's probably going to get up shortly, but these lings, there are just way too many lings popping into the base right now. Of course, as we mentioned before, he is just absolutely streaming them in. And down here, we'll have a quick look while we're waiting. HButt is now getting the lair up and running. He's probably wanting to get baneling speed if possible to make sure he can definitely win this game. He's sort of taking his time trying to attack here, and what this has done is this has actually let Raven get into a nice position in terms of defensive positioning of his units. He will have another auto turret ready to roll in just a moment here. A couple of Marines are already out. A bunker is going down. A Rax is just going to come down in front of that bunker. So these SCVs will actually be quite well defended from this position with this bunker with very little surface area covering it. But as we can see here, there isn't really too much for HButt to do at the moment here. He's a little bit stuck for where he can go. Going to try and take the banelings up through the backside there. An auto turret goes down to defend the lings at the front, and those banelings detonate on nothing at all. And the SCVs just wandering around, checking out what's up, having a drink, and they're all good. So not really sure what HButt is up to there. Remember, this guy was actually laughing like crazy when he busted through. Supply depot going down to block off this auto turret as well, which would be really good for defensive measures here. A Raven is going to pop out from Raven as well, good name, and he's going to certainly have another defensive Raven in a moment. Not to mention these two have also almost got their energy up to put some more auto turrets down. So this has actually gotten into a little bit of an unfortunate situation for HButt at the moment. He's spent so much on these lings and banelings. Keep in mind the lings don't actually have speed, so they can't reinforce as fast as they'd probably like to. Not to mention, if we have a quick look on the tab there, we only have 2 extra drones that have been built up by HButt at the time when he was attacking here, so he certainly hasn't actually been able to boost up his economy. And in fact, Raven is starting to catch up in the economy, so this could be interesting. Trying to get in there and kill that Rax. Not enough banelings. There were just too few banelings to actually bust down the Rax. It's got 1,000 health, so it's certainly enough to hold off that many banelings. And it looks as if this is probably this may turn the other way, depending on how HButt actually goes about this. He's going to send these lings home. There are some lings left over in the corner of the base here. Hasn't actually taken any extra expansions because he's been spending so much time trying to bust through. And we'll see what HButt is going to do, because he's sort of, as we mentioned, stuck for a little bit of what he was going to do here. Ravens are starting to get out in slightly higher numbers. We got 3, there's a 4th on the way, but he is supply blocked for the moment. HButt is interestingly supply blocked as well, just getting an Overlord out now to counter that. And as we can see, the Lings are starting to stream back in. Not really sure what the plan is here. He's certainly got a lot of them in here. On the map, he totally has 38 Lings, which are all probably sitting out here. He's going to try and take out what he can of the outskirts of the base of Raven, but Raven's just got too many. Well, he's got too many Ravens out to actually defend everything here that HButt is trying to do. The second Rax is now done. A reactor is going down on the first Rax, and we'll see if HButt has a way to bust in here, but I just don't think there's enough. There is a bunker here at the back which will hold off any attacks there. Trying to take out this gas is probably one of the best things he can do. Of course, if you can, as we mentioned in game number 1, if you can stop that gas from being pumped into the Terran economy, you can stop the Ravens from coming through. But the problem will be that he's just not got enough mobility in these Lings. Of course, without having Ling speed, they will not be able to move around swiftly enough to take out anything like that. Hasn't even got it on the way. There's still he's morphing in a Spire, so he is switching to probably one of the better techs to counter the Ravens, but it definitely keeps the Ravens immobile. Of course, as we mentioned in game number 1, once the Ravens get into a position where they're being attacked by the Lings, they have to put their auto turrets down to defend themselves, and then they can't actually move. So we'll see if perhaps that is the plan from HButt, and as we can see, the refinery did actually get taken out, so that's actually really good for HButt if he can keep a hold on the game and progress as he really should, which is to these Mutalisks. And if he can get a good number of them up, he definitely will be in a great position. But the one issue he does have, of course, as we mentioned before, 4 Ravens are now out. The economy is sort of getting a little bit better here for Raven. He's sitting here on 20 harvesters to 35 of HButt. And but HButt is definitely doing really well in the gas stakes as well, so we'll see what the plan is. Putting down a few more supply depots. He obviously does have oh, he's got the 5 Ravens, my bad. He actually has a couple of extra ones here. These Lings are going to have to follow these Ravens back. Of course, the interesting thing is that the Lings can't actually do anything, especially when there are some auto turrets on the ground, and we'll see what Raven is going to have a go at doing here. We don't have any Mutalisks on the way just yet. No, there's no Mutalisks on the way. Ling speed is finally being done here, and now we actually have an auto turret going down. We got a couple on the low ground here. Beautiful positioning here of these auto turrets. Check that out. We got one on the top there, just taking some of the fire, and he will slowly, perhaps slowly push in with some of these auto turrets if possible, and he may be able to cover the expansion. And if he can actually hold off any Lings from coming down to the natural expansion, he can actually send in some Marines and perhaps attack that one. Mutalisks are finally popped out. We actually have a total of 8 Mutalisks on the map at the moment. The Lings are finally disposing of these auto turrets which are left over here, and the Mutalisks are now going to go to town on these Ravens. They should be able to take most of these out. As we mentioned before, there are the auto turrets on the ground to provide some defensive fire against the Mutalisks, but there are just too many units here for Raven to hold them off. Laughing again is HButt. He's got a little bit to contend with now, though. A lot of these Marines have started moving out for Raven. He's going to come down with the Marine support, come through and try and take out what he can. He is obviously in a decent position, given that there are only 4 Mutalisks left on the map at the moment. There are a few in production. No, there's only Lings in production at the moment. There is certainly enough gas and that sort of thing for HButt to get some more Mutalisks on the way, but he doesn't look like he's going to. Losing more Mutalisks. He's down to 2 Mutalisks in total. Bailey comes in, tries to take out some of the Marines, only hits 2. Some of the Marines are now inside. The natural goes down, and now we actually see that Raven has turned this in his favor, just simply due to the slow attacking of HButt inside Raven's base. And now we see these Marines are starting to move in here. This could get absolutely ugly for HButt. Takes out the Queen. There are no more Queens left. Only these Lings, a few Banelings which are morphing in, along with a couple of Mutas in the sky, and that is just not enough to defend against all of these Marines with the Raven backup. Final attack coming in here, I would say, from HButt. He does a good job, actually takes out some of those Marines, and actually he could actually try and kill off the rest of these Ravens if possible. Ravens do not have energy just yet. They're just waiting a few more seconds to get some more energy up to get their 50 energy, which is required for the auto turrets. And now we do see that Raven has pretty much mined out his main expansion here. The Ravens are probably going to go down. One of them goes down. The second one actually gets away to fight another day. And this command center will be up and running down at the natural in no time. These 2 bunkers have been pumping out Marines, so we do see that some more defensive Marines will be out and ready to roll for Raven, and it looks as if he may be preparing for another push. As we can see here, the Banelings are probably the only things which are going to defend at all against any sort of push, and a Queen is finally coming out again here for HButt is going to be in a lot of trouble if Raven decides to push, though. A couple of bunkers going up to make sure he is in a good defensive position. Another rack, some refineries, of course, to get some more gas out. 2 Ravens are prepared, of course. 3, in fact. Have a look at that. We actually have 3. Probably would want to repair this one. And I would suspect we could see the end of HButt if he's not careful. Check out these Banelings just rolling through here, unperturbed, getting inside the natural expansion there, getting in the mineral line, and they will not actually get any kills done. But I'll tell you what they are doing now, holding up the mining of that base there. But pretty much a huge waste of those Banelings there, not actually killing really any of those SCVs. I think they may have got 1 or 2, but that was all of the defense that HButt had to contribute to his main base here. And now that the 3 Ravens and the few Marines are now coming down to attack, he actually really has nothing to defend. There are 4 Lings here, but I tell you what, they probably won't do anything at all. Switching into Banelings there, probably not the best idea, but he's got to do something. Some auto turrets going down. A lot of Marines are now streaming out here. They have a great arc on this hatchery. A couple of auto turrets going down, and that is the end of HButt. So hope you guys enjoyed those 2 particular games. A little bit of a learning experience for all of you, of course. It's not often that you see someone do mass Ravens. And of course, hopefully HButt is not too mad after those 2 particular games. So hope you guys like that one. Cheers.